It's another day in the United States, and it being another day means that there's another shooting. Not only was there a shooting in El Paso, Texas, where what appears to be a white nationalist went into a Walmart and killed 20 people, but then there was another shooting not even 24 hours later in Ohio. And as of the time of this recording, there's no real information about it yet. In fact, I believe it only occurred about a half an hour before this video, before I hit the record button. And of course, the same media tropes are pulled out every single time there is a shooting in the United States. The first thing they aim for is to get rid of guns. I mean, let's face it, the end result actually is to ban all guns from the public, despite anything they might say to the contrary. I don't believe it's just common sense regulation, or it's just getting rid of the fully automatic AR style AK assault rifle with the 40 billion round attachment underneath. In fact, and I believe that there's the end game to get rid of all guns in general, and that this is something that capitalism has wanted to do for some time, which experiences a great deal of difficulty in the United States, particularly given the way that the Constitution was written. Now, the idea that if you just simply take guns away from people, there'll be less shootings. Well, I guess technically that's true. If you took scalpels away from surgeons, there'd be less surgeries. But does that really actually deal with the problem? And some people like to point to even the type of gun means that there's going to be a problem. Okay, so let me put this in a rather unique way. I have a gun. Now, it is a Mark 7 plasma rifle that, please, Niagara Regional Police, I legally purchased this weapon from a reputable dealer. I got it from the Van Graffs the last time I was in New Vegas. This is a fully functional, professionally made Mark III plasma rifle. It's fully functional. It conforms with all standard laws. So there's nothing to worry about. Please don't kick down my door thinking that I have a cache of weapons. This is legally purchased. It's all above board. Now, if the liberals had their way, I would no longer have this energy weapon. And that really bothers me as someone who likes guns. Because if you take this gun away, in their mind, how am I going to be able to walk into a Walmart and gooify people? So, they do have somewhat of a point. That maybe it's just the fully automatic AR assault rifle 40 billion clip rounds that we need to get rid of. And if they have a smaller magazine, then less people will get shot. Of course, people can, reload. And that's a kind of a common thing with guns. So, with the point, all jokes aside, one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that gun control at no point deals with the actual issue. And that issue is why people want to shoot each other in general. I mean, look at the UK. You take away guns, then people just stab each other. And then there's like gun buyback programs, knife bins where you turn in that knife, young man. That way there's not a problem. Which is like ridiculous because you could just take any sharpened piece of metal and then you've got a knife. So the UK's knife problem is like a whole separate video altogether. But I mean, let's face it. The issue here is the fact that people want to shoot each other. This is a problem. And it's one that is not being addressed. Because, essentially, capitalism has no answer for it. They don't know what to do. Because there's nothing they can do. So, the only thing they can do is to take guns away. Take away the means not the cause. I don't have to tell you, my audience, the whole history and explanation behind capitalist alienation and how it divides people, how it creates alienation, and then it turns into outbursts of violence, etc. Now, of course, there are instances where the shootings are caused by mental illness. Yes, that does happen, but that does not explain all of them. No. And in fact, capitalist alienation is highly linked to mental health in general. In either case, the problem of why people want to shoot each other is not being addressed. I don't think I really have to explain over again, as many people have, that this is an inanimate object. Guns will not fire unless you pull the trigger. They're not living, breathing beings with their own consciousness and self-awareness. You have to want to kill somebody in order for that to happen. And simply blaming an inanimate object is not going to solve that problem. And that's what really needs to be addressed here. American society is falling apart. I mean, it is crumbling day by day. And this is by no means something that you can blame on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is part of the problem, but he is not the problem. This is something capitalism has been doing for decades. It doesn't take much of a genius to realize that. Look at the social democratic Western European countries and their greater social safety net, their greater culture when it comes to these kinds of things, and the spending of public resources to improve people's lives does reduce incidents like these. Okay, if you help people, if you treat people better, if you do things to help them, even in the limited way the social democracy does, it makes a difference. One of the things people like to lament is the idea that the British police don't carry firearms. And to a lot of people, particularly Americans, this seems almost silly. You know who also didn't carry firearms for a long time? The Soviet police. The Soviet police didn't have firearms. I believe somewhere around the end they did start carrying firearms. I'm not entirely certain, but I know for the most part, Soviet police, long after World War II, when, basically when the war was over and all the problems that come with war were done, police officers didn't carry guns because they didn't need them. So, it can be done. You can have a society where the murder rate is extremely low. I mean, this can be done. It's not an impossible task. It's just impossible under capitalism. Stop making people want to. Okay, let me put it to you another way. One of the things that has come out about modern medicine that actually scientifically proves something Marx said was correct. He said a lot of crime was not just economically motivated, but psychologically motivated as well. Now, there's a lot of people who've done research into neural brain things that neuromedicine, sorry. And they found that there are people who can have an actual psychopath gene, but never become psychopaths, because some kind of underlying trauma never activates it. In fact, it's extremely rare that that gene is actually activated. And the same thing goes for alienation in general. If there isn't some kind of underlying cause that pushes capitalist alienation, then the effects of it never take place. And this flies in the face of everything that capitalism would have you believe about human nature, that we're all inherently evil and all kinds of other nonsense. It is a better world is possible, to use a phrase. But this frequently gets forgotten about. when we try to deal with things like public shootings and the mess that comes out of it, and the idea is simply disarm the public and the problem will go away. Well, I think the UK proved that doesn't work. Well, they've certainly proved that. So I don't want people to lose sight of that when we build the outrage behind white supremacy, which seems to be connected in at least one of these killings. Don't get me wrong, white supremacy certainly is a problem. And there's definitely a link between increased rates of violence and white nationalism. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is, when trying to deal with that, try not to lose sight of what causes white nationalism in general. That kind of alienation. And that's the thing that we as Marxists need to keep in sight. I mean, I know liberals are just going to ignore that just all day long. They're just going to blame inanimate objects, her, it's all Donald Trump, etc. But none of these things gets to the heart of the issue, what causes the problem. And that problem is not that people have a means to kill each other, but that people want to kill each other.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.